Hi, everyone. Welcome back to What Now, a podcast for the lost and found. This is your host, Amanda. I wanted to check in and just say, hey, I was actually not planning on having another episode yet. To be honest, a lot of stuff is going on in the background while I'm trying to do some more research and get this show off the ground. So I've been really busy and just, unfortunately, due to scheduling, have not been able to get other guests on. Yeah, so you are getting a lot of personal time with me this week. So, yay! But I was out walking Dirks this morning, and the creativity kind of hit me. And as you know, usually if I'm feeling inspired, I need to take advantage of that moment. And I know that I wanted to talk this week about toxic positivity. I had an outline written for that theme, but I don't think I've done enough research on it yet since I was busy with my full-time job this week. And since all my scheduling has been thrown off, I did not want to come on the show today or just not. I didn't want to come on the show today and not be prepared, because then I would feel like the episode would be disingenuous, and that's not what I want to do, right? Like, the whole point is to be vulnerable with all of you as my listeners, to help you feel less lost. And it wouldn't be fair for me to start a topic that I didn't really know how to finish, right? So I don't want to do that. Number one. And then number two, while I was walking, I started to think about this, and quite honestly, it's just not the right time. Some of you may or may not know if you're around the Tennessee, Kentucky area, but this past weekend, so I'm recording right now on Tuesday, December 12th. So this past weekend on Saturday, there were tornadoes that touched down in the area and coming through middle Tennessee and into southern Kentucky. And there was a lot of damage over the weekend. And Dirks and I are fine. We don't live in that part of town, so we were okay. We were safe. We did not lose power. We didn't have any damage to our house. Our property is okay. But there are a lot of people who completely lost their homes and completely had their lives shaken and ruined, and their possessions, ripped from them and literally ripped apart up in the air. And it didn't feel right to do an episode about, keep telling you to keep your shit together, because it just isn't. I'm really struggling today for the words, but it felt inappropriate, for lack of a better term, right? It felt out of place to do that particular episode today. So while I was walking, I started thinking about, well, even if you don't have much on the topic today and you still want to show up, how do you want to show up for your listeners today? Like, what is it that you do want to say? If you're not going to cover that topic, what do you actually want to say? And to be honest, I think I would rather talk about the season. It is Christmas time. It's the holiday season. Christmas, Hanukkah, various celebrations or no celebrations for some people, depending on your family and your dynamics and the culture you were raised in. But at a bare minimum, it's the end of the year, kind of like what we talked about last week. And the end of the year often has people sitting in a season where they are reevaluating their priorities, their emotions, their energy. And hopefully during that evaluation, you are deciding where you want to spend that going forward, right? So even if you don't believe in creating a New Year's resolution, maybe you want to make changes for your priority list. You want to move some things around, drop stuff off your plate, add more to your plate. I don't know. It just kind of depends on your goals. Or emotionally, maybe you had a really tough year and you need help with regulating those really big feelings, or your energy was expended. You're getting spread thin, or spread thick, depending on who you are and what's happening. But in order to achieve your goals, there's only a finite amount of energy that you truly have to dedicate to either your priorities, your emotional regulation, or your plans. And so end of the year is typically a time when people are trying to decide where to spend it. So as I was walking today, I thought maybe I should tell you where I think you should spend it. Where I plan on spending mine, at least. Or, what I think would be a better choice if you're having a tough time trying to decide. But number one, I think definitely do not spend it on your ex. Hear me out. Don't spend it on your ex. Not your priorities, not your emotions, not your energy. Don't do it. Amanda, why? What are you talking about? But I miss them. I miss them so much, and they texted me. They reached out because we had our first date in December, and he knew it was my birthday like 5 months ago, and he was sorry he forgot to tell. No. Hard pass, no. Negative. Exes always seem to know when you are getting ready for growth or change, or you're going through something, and they just magically seem to have radar or ESP where they're kind of like, ooh, she's moving on, he's moving on. They're not thinking about me as much as they used to. Let me make sure that I say something to them right now. The universe tells me I need to show up for them right now. I never showed up before. I couldn't listen before. I couldn't be supportive before, but for whatever reason, today I can. And that's the devil. That is Satan. That is Satan messing with you. So do not spend it on your ex. Instead, I think you need to be spending your priorities, your emotions, your energy, your reevaluation time on the people that actually matter to you, right? You only get a finite amount of time on this earth and in this life. And I can't truly tell you where to go or what to do with it. But I think it's not completely out of sorts for me to say you should spend it where it matters to you, right? Not on people who don't bring value back into your life. So think about this, who shows up for you? Who do you miss that you wanted to talk to or need to reach out to? Are there people longtime friends that you've had that you just haven't spoken to in a while? Are there people that you admire that you've met throughout your life that you haven't had a chance to catch up with and you were thinking about them today? When's the last time you actually called them? When's the last time you said, hi, I miss you. I hope you're doing well. So proud of you, etc. I saw you accomplish this thing on social media and just wanted to say congratulations, or etc. I'm so happy for you. Anything, just a gentle, sweet reminder that you love them and you care for them, right? Who are those people? When's the last time you did that? When's the last time you spread some kindness to your tribe, right? Have you checked on your friends at all? Even if you don't want to, even if it's people you talk to on a regular basis, have you checked in on them for real? Like, have you, other than just sending each other memes or DMs of wild jokes or dog videos, like cat videos too? Like, have you actually said, hey, how are you doing really? Are you happy? Are you okay? Are you feeling fulfilled? Did you check on your friends? Because sometimes the strongest people in your life are actually the ones that are struggling the most. It definitely takes a specific kind of strength and vulnerability to be open when you are feeling like a failure or you're struggling or admitting that you're having a tough time. That's not an easy thing to do, of course. And I don't want to dismiss that. I don't want to dismiss the people that are openly practicing being vulnerable on a regular basis. Those people are trying really hard to grow and to connect and to admit they believe that there's something better out there for them. And until they go through that process, they're not going to get there. And that's okay. And that's good. And you should absolutely check on them as well. But I think in my past, there were a lot of times where it would have been nice to hear from some of my friends. Like when I was living in Philadelphia and dealing with a lot, I am a very strong and independent person, and I like to think smart, maybe probably a little more book smart than I am street smart, but I had a friend call me a few weeks back and say, I just wanted you to know, I'm going to paraphrase this, but I just wanted you to know that like I'm really proud of you for starting this podcast and putting yourself out there and for all the growth that you've had over the last few years. It's been really cool as your friend to be a part of your life, or at least somewhat in your orbit, and watching you progress. But I knew deep down that I never really had to worry about you. You're just not one of those friends that, keeps me up at like that I do care about, but don't really keep, you don't keep me up at night when I'm, we're like, is she going to be okay? Is she going to figure this out? Is she going to get her shit together? Is she going to whatever? And I did appreciate the message for what it was worth, right? Like that particular friend of mine has been in my life for a very long time. And it felt good to know that that person was listening to the show and was actively trying to support me in that way. But I would be lying if I didn't say that it did sting a little bit, like thinking, wow, you didn't even want to check. You didn't care to check because you thought it was fine. Like, what if it wasn't, right? Like there were a few years there, like it wasn't absolutely horrible. Like I was, I was able to get out of bed. I did show up for myself, even if it was the bare minimum. Like I did go to work. I did get my day accomplished. But there were a few times where I would come home and just break down, right? And it was so much easier to do in private because I did live alone and do live alone now. But there were definitely moments in the past few years where if my friends had reached out and said something, it may have helped, right? It may have helped me vent, or it may have helped me unburden myself with a lot of things. And while I am flattered that there are people that think that I am really strong or think that I am, highly independent and capable, and that is true. I'm not saying that it's not, but there were moments where it still would have been nice to have somebody check in, somebody that mattered to me and said back to me, you mattered to me as well, right? Does that make sense? Kind of like I think there's a big difference between silent struggles and open vulnerability people. But like by starting this podcast, I am actually being extremely public with my vulnerability and my shortcomings and my self-discovery now in my 30s, or second wave, I guess, because I feel like middle school, teenage years, you're really learning a lot. And then in your 20s, your head's mostly in the sand because you're just trying to survive and have fun at the same time, which sometimes does not work. But in your 30s, I feel like you get a second chance at rediscovering yourself after everything you learned over the last decade. And I don't know, it just, I've learned a lot about that. And even though I put on a good show and put on a good face, and I am a strong person and I am a capable person, it still would have been nice, right? And I get it. Like, I'm also not the best friend that I could be either. A lot of this is also a self-talk and a reminder to myself that, like, yeah, you should call those friends that you haven't talked to in a while. You should text those friends that you haven't texted in a while. You should say hi to the people that you haven't in a while. And it's hard, right? You get older, you're an adult, you've got a lot more responsibility. Every year it changes. Like maybe you now have kids, you got 2 jobs, you got a pet, you got a spouse or a significant other, you're traveling for work, or you moved abroad, you got a different job in another place and you're trying to start all over again. I get it. I do. Absolutely get it. The older you get, the more finite time feels, and you're going to spend it where your energy and emotions and priorities are valued and elevated, as you should. But right now in this season, you probably do have friends that have lost everything. You probably do have friends that have lost a parent. You probably do have friends that lost their job and they're struggling to make ends meet. You might have friends or family that are getting over a breakup or having a tough time in their marriage, or they have family abroad who are struggling with wars and loss and devastation. You have lots of internal battles that could be going on within your own tribe that you may not be aware of. So I just ask that in this season, while you're reevaluating your own priorities, your own energy, your own emotions, that when you have time and when you think of it, just do it. Go ahead and reach out to those people. Go ahead and extend some kindness to those people that matter the most to you, especially them. And if able, extend it to a stranger too. You never know what somebody else might be going through, whether you've ever met them before or not. So there's just absolutely no excuse to not be kind, right? Or not be thoughtful. It's truly not that hard. And especially for your friends that you know that are going through a significant form of loss, whether that's self-loss or personal loss, financial, relationship loss, etc. Loss is always going to happen, but you don't just quote unquote get over it, right? You're moving on. You might see them progressing. You might see them coming back into the fold or showing up again, but you're doing that most likely because you have to find a way to survive. You have to find a way to get through it. You have to find a way to still make ends meet. Just because you're going through that loss doesn't mean that the whole world stops for you. So I wouldn't disregard that or assume that that person's completely okay. It's not because you're heartless. It's not because you're purposefully trying to forget what happened to you, but you're trying to find a way to just keep going and keep showing up. And sometimes that's all the effort that person has. That is all the energy that person has. That is the only priority that person has, is just to keep showing up. And I think it would be nice if you, their friend, acknowledge that. If you, their loved one, told them that you could see them do that. You could see them working through it. You can see them clawing their way out of whatever hole they're in, and you're proud of them. Maybe you don't know how to help them. Maybe you can't. But just letting them know that you're there and you support them and you love them no matter what. I think that that's really important, especially right now, for anybody that's going through something heavy or having a tough time during the holiday season. I think it's worth the time for you to step out of your own bubble and reach out to the people that matter to you most. And let's be honest, your ex won't fix that. Your ex is not going to be the person that's going to respond to that or provide that for you or make you feel better. And also, just to be clear, I'm inserting the word your ex as just an optional noun here. Like, your ex is going to refer to any particular thing that you let go of, right? You worked really hard to let go of. Maybe it's intrusive thoughts. Maybe it's a job that you don't like anymore. Maybe it's a coworker that's been bullying you. Maybe it's your eating disorder that you work so hard to reconcile with. Maybe it's your whatever demon that you've been fighting, that that's the thing that's not going to fix it. Don't slip back into what's comfortable. Don't slip back into the thing you know that's really bad for you. Don't slip back into the thing that you work so hard to shed or to drop off. Like, people use metaphors, in this self-help space, they use metaphors all the time about you don't have to carry that baggage, right? Like, you can leave that luggage at the door. You can drop it at any time, right? If you dropped that carry-on luggage, leave it. Leave it. If you broke up with that person or that individual a long time ago, you did it for a reason, right? Don't let loneliness, boredom, Sunday scaries, what ifs creep into your head. Don't do it. Don't. You have worked so hard this year to get to this season, this section of the year, this end of the moment. You've got 2 weeks left for reevaluating your priorities and your emotions and your energy from this year, right? Don't slip back into that trap. Don't do it. Your ex can't fix it. It's also not their job, right? It was never their job. It's your job. So whatever that particular thing is that you work so hard to let go of this year, they are out of your life for a reason. Why open a door it took so much effort to shut, right? Think about that. Why open a door it took so much effort to shut? What's the point? Is that going to help you reevaluate your priorities, your emotions, your energy, and where to put it? Is it? Are you truly ready or strong enough and prepared to fight off that bad energy again? Like, why overwhelm yourself if it's not truly necessary? You know what I mean? Like, don't disrespect yourself and your growth that you've achieved this year by slipping back into something that you know is not going to bring you solace or value or closure. And closure can be a topic we could discuss for multiple episodes probably, so we won't get into whether or not closure is real. But if you're overwhelmed this season, I say just keep it simple. Don't call your ex. Check on your tribe instead. Check on yourself. Call your loved ones. Hype up your friends. And be proud of all of the growth that you've achieved thus far. Instead, you have done so much to rebuild your own strength, to find your hope again, to stabilize your environment, right? It's not the energy we need. It's not. You deserve so much more than that. And if you are still struggling and if you are still having a hard time, I see you and I hear you, and you can do this. You can get out of it. You can make better choices. You can fix this. It's going to take a lot of vulnerability. It's going to take a lot of work. You're going to have to really dig your heels in, and you're going to have to be open to admitting where you've gone wrong and where you've done right, and putting in the effort to find what works best for you to dig yourself out of that hole, right? And that's where you should spend your energy. Not on your ex. Don't do that. Just remember, start going down the list. Remind yourself of, like, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. Oh yeah, and then they said this. And then they told you that the idea of being in a relationship was better than the reality. Yeah. Yeah. I had somebody say that to me once. I'll save that for another story. But Just remember, you are completely worthy of all the good that is coming your way. You are completely worthy of the light and the love that you feel in your own life. You are completely and utterly worthy of a higher level of priority, emotional stability, and energy. You are absolutely worth that. And I don't think you should spend it anywhere else except in the places that matter to you, right? The places that bring you joy, with the people that show up, the moments when you are having open vulnerability. That's where you should spend it. I don't know what that looks like for you, but I wish you nothing but the best this holiday season and the best of luck with whatever you might be going through. And if there's ever anything that I can do to help, or if anybody wants to just vent, you can always find me at askwhatnowpodcast@gmail.com. You can send questions, anything you'd like to share for the show, any feedback about the show, you can always send it to askwhatnowpodcast@gmail.com. We also have the Instagram account, Podcast for the Lost. I love interacting with all of my listeners. So if this episode has inspired you or uplifted you at all, I hope so. But please remember to share, like, subscribe, leave a review, send it to your friends. If you're listening on Spotify, you can also send me voice messages, and you can leave comments. I love reviewing those and sharing those onto the profiles as well. So I always appreciate any feedback you guys, gals, ladies, they, thems would like to give me. I really do appreciate it. It means more to me than you know, that I'm not just talking into the void here. I mean, maybe I am, but if it resonates with you at all, then I've done my job. I've done my job if I can at least help one person today. But that's really all I've got. This season's a tough one in more ways than one, and I kind of feel like my end of the year is a little bit more chaotic than I had intended, but I think it's chaotic for good reasons. So I'm going to try and lean into that, and I encourage you to lean into yours as well. If it's hard, keep going. And if it's going well for you and it's positive, keep going as well. Don't feel like you should just get your foot off the gas just because you're trying to relax. Like, I think there's always a time and a place. But in the meantime, if you do have free time, always reach back out to your friends. Tell them you love them. That's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for listening. I will catch up with you again next week. New episodes out every Tuesday. And yeah, love you guys. And remember, wanderers are always welcome.